One thing I love about the stories you hear each week on the show is that every brand starts with a story. Behind every product is the founder who took a chance on an idea, overcame challenges, and worked hard to bring it to life. Walmart is making it easier for customers to discover products from small brands and support the people behind them. With thousands of small brands available through Walmart, customers can discover innovative products while learning about the entrepreneurs and stories that brought them to life. By helping connect these brands with communities across the country, Walmart is creating more opportunities for founders to grow and share what makes their products unique. Visit walmart.com to learn more.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you may not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
My name is Brenda. Welcome to Horrifying History, where you will hear about the unexplained and supernatural events that have stained the pages of history. Victorian England is mostly remembered as a time of refinement. Men wearing top hats, horse-drawn carriages rattling down cobblestone streets, and an empire that stretched across the world. But beneath the surface lurked a darker reality. Murderers could disappear in crowded cities, and poison became one of the deadliest weapons imaginable. So break out your stethoscopes, my spooky friends. Today, you'll hear the story about a physician who became one of the most terrifying serial killers of the Victorian era. Thomas Neill Cream was born in Glasgow, Scotland on May 27, 1850, as one of 8 children. His father William worked in business and longed to find a better opportunity abroad. He was determined to improve his family's station in life, so he immigrated to what was then known as the Dominion of Canada in 1854. The family decided to settle near Quebec City, since families with ambition could build prosperous futures there. After arriving in Canada, William managed a prosperous shipbuilding and lumber firm. This allowed for Thomas to attend the now-defunct La Chute Academy and later McGill University in Montreal. By all outward appearances, Thomas enjoyed the advantages that most children never had. His family was stable, and he received a good education. His family was considered to be respectable. Thomas sang in his church choir, taught Sunday school, and for a short time apprenticed in his father's shipbuilding and lumber business. Unlike many other notorious killers, there were no reports of abuse of any kind. There was no evidence of any head trauma or neurological injury. In fact, much of his early life appeared to be ordinary. But my spooky friends, appearances can be deceiving. Friends and acquaintances would later describe Thomas as an extremely intelligent, but having troubling qualities. He could be manipulative, arrogant, self-centered, and calculating. These traits would become increasingly apparent as he entered adulthood. When thinking about post-secondary education, Thomas was attracted to medical programs. Being a doctor would give him prestige, money, respect, and authority. During the Victorian times, physicians were considered to be in an elevated position. Patients trusted them, and communities respected them. A doctor's opinion on virtually anything carried enormous weight. For Thomas, who craved status and influence, medicine was an ideal career. Thomas enrolled in the medical program at McGill University in Montreal, which is still considered to be one of Canada's most respected universities. The science behind medicine fascinated him. It gave him the education he needed to either save lives or take them. He learned that many households possessed substances capable of killing, like arsenic and strychnine. Physicians from these times frequently handled materials like this, and they were sold over the counter in pharmacies. Regulations were inadequate, and many exploited this system. By 1876, Thomas earned his medical degree, and to many, it appeared like he was destined for success. But beneath his professional image, another side of his personality was starting to show. While studying medicine from 1872 to 1876, Thomas's demeanor started to change. He developed a dark fascination with poisons and anesthetics, and he wrote his thesis on chloroform. In 1876, Thomas met a girl named Flora Brooks while living in Waterloo, Quebec. Their relationship would reveal a lot about William's character. During these times, social expectations surrounding relationships were very strict. Pregnancy outside marriage would destroy a woman's reputation. Many women would find themselves trapped in relationships that they didn't want. They were dependent on men's decisions, and this happened to Flora. According to historical accounts, Flora became pregnant. Thomas's response was not one of love. It was of self-preservation. When Flora became pregnant a few months after she and William started dating, he promised that the two would be married. What he did instead was to attempt to perform an abortion, but he failed. This left Flora severely ill and on the doorstep of death. Thomas tried to flee to Montreal, but he was caught by Flora's father, who forced the two to be married at literal gunpoint. This marriage had nothing to do with love. It was all about appearances. The day after the wedding, Thomas abandoned Flora. He left for England to continue his medical education. Flora never saw or heard from her husband again. She eventually recovered from the abortion, but died of consumption in 1877. Flora's doctor wondered if her death had something to do with the medicine that Flora said that her husband sent to her. Even though he never took any action concerning this, he would later admit that he suspected Thomas had killed his wife. Thomas received his postgraduate training at St. Thomas's Hospital Medical School in London. He then went to Edinburgh, where he obtained additional qualifications and became a surgeon. He returned to North America, wanting to practice medicine in a community in dire need of physicians. After practicing a short time in Iowa, he moved to London, Ontario. Now back in Canada, Thomas set up his practice and started to treat patients. He also became an illegal abortionist. Not long afterwards, he was charged under the Ontario Medical Act for practicing medicine without a license. He pled guilty, but continued to see patients at his office. Around this time, suspicious deaths started to occur in the city. None of these were connected, since in Victorian society, sudden illnesses were common. They were mostly attributed to natural causes, since medical knowledge was very limited. Autopsies were not regularly performed, and things like poison mimicked some illnesses. For someone who had medical knowledge, this could be easily exploited. About a year after Thomas returned to Canada, a woman named Catherine Hutchinson Gardner was found dead in an outhouse behind his office. A bottle of chloroform was found next to her body, and the police found this very suspicious. She was pregnant and became ill after receiving medication from Thomas. Authorities investigated and had several questions. Why did she become sick? What did Thomas give her? Was he responsible for Catherine's death? An inquest was called, and it came out that Catherine visited Thomas's office on several occasions to get an abortion. Thomas insisted that he refused to provide her with medications that would terminate her pregnancy, and claimed her death must have been a suicide. The jury disagreed and ruled that Catherine had died by chloroform administered by an unknown person. Since they had no evidence that the unknown person was Thomas, he was not charged. But suspicions lingered. They were so strong that Thomas's practice and reputation in the community were ruined. He left Canada and moved to Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. In the early 1880s, Thomas set up a medical practice on the west side of Chicago and was soon known to the local police as an abortionist. The city was booming and immigrants arrived daily. Opportunity seemed endless, but Chicago also possessed a dark side. Poverty and crime were prominent, and vulnerable populations were easily exploited. This resulted in Thomas having a large pool of possible victims. They were society's forgotten, with limited resources. They could disappear and not be noticed. Thomas became well known in the red light district for offering illegal abortions to sex workers. The police investigated him concerning the death of Mary Ann Faulkner, who was Thomas's patient. The police could not charge him since they had a lack of concrete evidence. A short time later, another woman, Miss Stack, also died after going to Thomas for medical treatment. After she passed away, Thomas attempted to blackmail the pharmacist who filled Miss Stack's prescriptions that Thomas wrote. The next victim was a woman named Alice Montgomery. She died of strychnine poisoning after she had an abortion in a rooming house a block away from Thomas's office. The police believed that Alice had been murdered, but they could not discover who the guilty party was. Due to the location of the body, time frame, and the way she died, it is believed that Thomas was the one who killed her. The most significant deaths around Thomas involved a man named Daniel Stott. Unlike Thomas's other victims, this victim was male. On July 14, 1881, Daniel died of strychnine poisoning after Thomas prescribed him an alleged treatment for epilepsy. Originally, Daniel's death was attributed to natural causes, but suspicions started to rise when Thomas sent a letter to the coroner. In this letter, Thomas blamed the pharmacist for Daniel's death after he tried to blackmail him. Police discovered that Julia Stott, Daniel's wife, was having an affair with Thomas. Tensions between Julia and Daniel began to rise as their relationship deteriorated. Soon afterwards, Daniel became very sick with symptoms that suggested poisoning. Police discovered that Julia purchased poison and gave it to Thomas. When the authorities discovered this, they confronted Julia and offered her a deal. If she gave state's evidence against Thomas, she would avoid going to jail. This resulted in Thomas's carefully crafted image of a respectable physician start to crumble, and for the first time, he faced consequences for his actions. He was charged and convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. But after 10 years, Thomas was released. After his brother begged the state's governor for leniency and allegedly bribed authorities, the governor commuted Thomas's sentence. While Thomas served his time, Daniel's friends had a tombstone made for his grave. It said, Daniel Stott, died June 12, 1881, aged 61 years, poisoned by his wife and Dr. Cream.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Most people don't realize how much of their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions pulling details about you from public records and the internet, then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might just sell credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of that together at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/prevent. Protect yourself now at aura.com/prevent.
History would show that releasing Thomas was a catastrophic mistake. Using the money he inherited from his father, Thomas went to England. He arrived in Liverpool on October 1st, 1891. He then made his way to London, which at the time was a sprawling city of millions. London's poverty-stricken neighborhoods gave countless of opportunities for a predator to disappear among the masses. Only a few years earlier, London had been terrorized by Jack the Ripper. Fear still lingered, and soon people learned that they had another killer on the loose 3 years after the Ripper murders. Thomas settled into his lodgings at 103 Lambeth Palace Road with remarkable ease. The area where he moved to was riddled with crime and poverty. Thomas, on the other hand, had money and was financially comfortable. Even so, the urge for power and control began to build. Once again, he started paying attention to those from society's poorer areas, targeting those struggling to survive. Their deaths would be dismissed, and Thomas took advantage of this vulnerability. On October 13, 1891, Ellen Donworth received 2 letters from Thomas asking for the two of them to meet up. The 19-year-old sex worker agreed. When Thomas offered her a drink from a bottle, she thought nothing of it. Afterwards, she became severely sick. Witnesses reported horrible symptoms like Ellen screaming in agony and convulsions. She died that night. When an inquest into Ellen's death began, Thomas wrote a letter to the coroner under the pseudonym of A. O'Brien. It was sent to investigators, and it offered authorities the name of Ellen's killer in return for what would be just under $43 million in today's funds. He also sent a letter to W.F.D. Smith, who was the owner of the W.H. Smith bookstalls. Thomas accused the man of murdering Ellen and demanded money for his silence. Fear started to spread through London. Investigators knew something sinister was occurring, but identifying the culprit was difficult. After all, in these times, who would suspect a well-connected and respectable doctor? But as the body count grew, another part of Thomas's personality emerged. With him sending blackmail letters concerning his own kills, it shows that Thomas was not just interested in murder. He was enjoying manipulating investigations and watching investigators chase false leads. He reveled in the feeling of superiority from deceiving others. He wanted to show that he was smarter than the authorities, and that arrogance would be his downfall. On October 20th of the same year, Thomas met a 27-year-old sex worker named Matilda Clover. After speaking with her, Thomas offered her medication that he instructed her to take 4 hours before she went to sleep. After taking the pills, Matilda started suffering from violent, painful spasms. She died 2 days later. Her death was assumed to be heart failure due to alcohol withdrawal. As he did previously, Thomas wrote a letter using the name of M. Malone and sent it to a prominent local physician named William Broadbent. In the letter, Thomas claimed to have evidence that William was involved in Matilda's death, and he demanded what would be a little over $33,400 in today's funds for him to stay quiet. Dr. Broadbent immediately reached out to Scotland Yard, who set up a trap for the blackmailer when he would pick up the cash. It didn't work, and Thomas remained a free man. After taking a vacation back in Canada, Thomas returned to London and murder. On April 2, 1892, Thomas met sex worker Louise Harvey. He offered her 2 pills and insisted that she take them right away, but Louise was suspicious. She pretended to swallow the pills and kept them hidden in the palm of her hand. She threw them away, which saved her life. 9 days later, Thomas met 2 sex workers, Alice March, age 21, and Emma Sherville, age 18. The women had spent the night with Thomas in their flat, and before leaving, he offered the ladies 3 pills each and a can of salmon. Both women died soon afterwards from strychnine poisoning. As the deaths started to pile up, authorities started noticing a pattern. Strychnine deaths were popping up again and again. The victims shared common circumstances. Witness statements revealed recurring details, which included a respectable-looking man with medical knowledge who was having interactions with the victims right before their deaths. When detectives started comparing notes, what seemed like isolated incidents started to look like they were dealing with a serial killer. Investigators started re-interviewing witnesses and created a timeline. One name that kept on popping up was Thomas Neill Cream, who just happened to be a physician who was previously incarcerated for poisoning his girlfriend's husband. The police then started looking into all the blackmail letters and quickly determined that those accused were innocent. They also noticed something else. The unknown letter writer referred to the murder of Matilda Clover. Her death had been registered as natural causes linked to her alcohol addiction. This made investigators realize that all of the letters were written by the person the press was now calling the Lambeth poisoner. Soon afterwards, Thomas ran into a police officer from New York who was on vacation in London. The officer had heard about the Lambeth poisoner, so Thomas volunteered to take him on a tour where the victims were found. When he met up with a British officer, the American told him about the tour. The British officer then thought that Thomas's knowledge of these cases was very suspicious. Hearing this, Scotland Yard put Thomas under surveillance. They discovered his regular visits with sex workers. They also had investigations in both Canada and the United States, where they learned about Thomas's history, which included his conviction for murder using poison back in 1881. It wasn't long before they figured out that Thomas was behind the extortion schemes where he would send letters to rich individuals claiming that he had damaging information about them. Then came the break that the investigators needed. One of Thomas's blackmail letters was able to be traced back to him. When shown a picture of Thomas, witnesses were able to identify him. Soon, authorities had enough evidence to act. On June 3, 1892, Thomas was arrested for the murder of Matilda Clover. Then on the 13th, he was charged with the murders of Matilda Clover, Ellen Dodsworth, Alice Marsh, and Emma Sherville. He was also charged with the attempted murder of Louise Harvey and extortion. After his arrest, Thomas remained remarkably confident. He thought he could manipulate the system and talk himself out of trouble, but this time was different. The evidence was stacked up against him, and the public were horrified that a doctor was actually a serial killer. Thomas's trial started on October 17, 1892, and the courtroom became the stage for one of the most sensational trials of the era. Prosecutors attempted to prove that Thomas was no regular killer, but a predator who crossed continents, leaving death in his wake. During this trial, Thomas made a statement that still generates debate more than a century later, and it's linked to one of history's greatest unsolved true crime mysteries: the case of Jack the Ripper. When Thomas's trial ended, the jury deliberated for 12 minutes before they found him guilty of all counts. Justice Henry Hawkins sentenced him to death by hanging. The execution would take place at Newgate Prison, which was one of Britain's most infamous jails. As his execution day came closer, newspapers speculated endlessly about how many people Thomas actually killed and whether the police identified all of his victims. Historians continue this debate even today. The day before his execution, Thomas made a will that left his estate to his lawyers. On November 15, 1882, he was walked to the gallows, and what happens next remains the most debated aspect of this case. There are several versions of this story, but in the most famous, Thomas' last words were, "I am Jack the..." and then the trapdoor opened before he could finish his sentence. It was customary to bury prisoners the same day as their death beneath the flagstones of the prison yard, with their graves marked only with one initial. But Thomas did not stay there forever. He was disinterred in 1902, and his remains were moved to the City of London Cemetery. Thomas was buried in an unmarked grave in Section 339. After Thomas's death, James Billington, who was a hangman for the British government between 1849 and 1901, claimed that Thomas's last words were, "I am Jack the..." James promoted this as proof that he executed the notorious Jack the Ripper. Not only is the statement unsubstantiated, but it was also a lie. Thomas was in an American prison during those murders, making it impossible that he was Jack the Ripper. This statement fueled speculation for more than a century. Different theories emerged through the years, including that Thomas was released early, traveled to London, and committed the Ripper murders. Some suggest that Thomas switched places with a look-alike and escaped all punishment. Others believe that Thomas was going to identify someone else as the killer. But there's one thing that we can say for sure, my spooky friends. Thomas's death brought the citizens of London relief. But it also brought up some very important questions, like how could a convicted murderer serving a life sentence be released? How many deaths would have been prevented if he served his whole sentence? Could stronger oversight have prevented Thomas's crimes? It is these questions that influence future discussions regarding criminal justice and toxicology. There was no single reform that emerged due to Thomas's crimes, but they did become part of a broader realization that serial killers exploit weaknesses in investigations and use them to their advantage. Lessons learned from this case helped shape the future of criminal investigations today. Thomas's motivation for killing has never been discovered. Experts believe that he was a sadist who loved watching his victims die a slow, agonizing death and controlling them while it was happening. He was also interested in money, as shown through his attempts to extort innocent people. But we'll never know why for sure Thomas killed 5 people, and possibly his wife and 4 other women who are under his care. Thomas Neill Cream spent the majority of his life hiding in plain sight, avoiding detection. His case remains one that is part history and part legend. What remains is that lives were cut short and loved ones were devastated. He chose a profession that is dedicated to healing, but it was used for destruction and to exploit others. Even though so much time has passed, Thomas's story does make us look at one thing. Sometimes the most dangerous monsters do not hide in forests or lurk in abandoned buildings. Sometimes they earn professional titles and gain society's trust. Sometimes, by the time that their true nature is revealed, it's already too late. Thank you for joining me today. What are your thoughts about the serial-killing doctor, Thomas Neill Cream? Let us know your thoughts on Facebook at Horrifying History, Instagram and Threads at Horrifying_history, X at Horrifying HIST1, or Blue Sky by searching for Horrifying History. If you haven't already done so, please remember to subscribe to our podcast. When you do, you not only let more people know about our show, but you also download our next episode on its release day. It's a great way not to miss our next episode. The Times Square Ripper, New York's Forgotten Killer. To learn even more about Horrifying History, you should visit our website. When you're there, you'll find links to all of our social media and to our YouTube channel, which features not just our podcast episodes, but also additional history-based videos for your enjoyment. We also have a blog that's filled with spooky topics and episode updates to read up on. On top of this site is the home to our fan club, which offers excellent perks like your own feed to listen to our show ad-free, access to new episodes a week early, and a new bonus episode each week. It's also the home to our store that's filled with spooky merchandise that you guys will love. For our fan club members, you will receive a permanent discount in our store for as long as you remain a fan club member. You can find all of this and more at horrifying-history-shop.fourthwall.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, history is often far more horrifying than fiction.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.
This one is for Hockeytown. For 9 years, we at the Grindline Podcast have been a go-to show for Detroit Red Wings fans who want more than just highlights. Think bar talk with a buddy who brought the receipts. Just a few guys who watch every single shift, pull every stat, and call their shots. Real game recaps, news breakdowns, advanced stats, and no sugarcoating on the team Detroit hockey fans love. Catch 2 episodes a week on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Search the Grindline Podcast, like, and subscribe.